Once again, I welcome those who come here today to discern whether or not the Lord is calling you to the priesthood. It's a fascinating thing in confluence of events that today's gospel is about the calling of Levi, otherwise known as Matthew. And you understand the dynamic. Matthew is working. He's established in his career. He's vigilant at his post. And Jesus comes to him, looks at him, and says, "Follow me." And everybody around him is saying, this guy's crazy. This guy's a sinner. This guy is weird. Why are you associating with him, Lord? And I think sometimes the peer pressure that is evident in the vocational discernment can sometimes detract or hinder somebody from actually following Christ. Matthew, or Levi, whatever you want to call him, had the fortitude to be able to say, I'm going to follow him. And I guess my question is always this: how and why? And I'll tell you why. Because Jesus looked at him with love. My mother, when she was alive, when one of my brothers was getting married, he brought home the girl whom he was going to marry. He ended up not marrying her, for which I'm very grateful. But we all met her. And then when they left, the real conversation began. And then at one point I said to my folks, love is blind, but the neighbors aren't. And my mother said something that I never forgot. She said, that's not really true. She said, love sees what other people can't. Jesus Christ sees in all of us something that maybe nobody else sees. But he sees it enough to say to you and to me, I no longer call you servants, I call you my friends. And he invites us to follow him. We don't know where he's going to lead. He's asking us to love him enough to trust him. And like Matthew, to leave everything behind. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty good at procrastinating. If I don't want to do something, I can come up with a lot of excuses. Or if, say, Father Linehan asks me to do something, I have right away, on autopilot, I'm thinking, how do I get out of it? All right? I think that's true about most of us. And I think it's true when the Lord calls us to follow him. I got other things to do. I got to worry about my family. I have to do this. I have to do that. And the Lord says to us in Scriptures, anybody who leaves mother or father, family, for my sake and for the gospel, will receive 100 times more. Do you believe that? I mean, really? Or do you just think that these are nice little sayings that, we throw out every so often? I believe that every word that Jesus speaks is the truth. I believe that when he looks at you and at me, he sees something that nobody else sees. He sees our goodness. He acknowledges our sinfulness. But when you come to communion, before you come, you say, oh, Lord, I am not worthy. And everybody sitting in this chapel this morning would say the same thing. I am not worthy. Have you ever been in love? Take a look at your parents. Do you think that they asked, is he worthy of our love? No. They just give it. Worthiness is not an issue for the one who loves. I don't ask if Aaron is worthy of my love or if Max is worthy of my love. I just give it. And if I, with all my faults, know how to do that, imagine how much God does it. Worthiness is not an issue for him. Don't make it an issue for yourself. Bask in the glory of being his friend, of being one who is loved infinitely and unconditionally. Listen to what he says about you. You are fearfully, wonderfully made. And I ask you to come and follow me so that where I am, you also will be. And then he prays, if you read this morning's office readings, he prays that the glory that is in him may be in us. That we will be the persons who bear his glory to the world. That we will be the ones who bind up hearts that are broken. Who will reach out to those on the margins of society. That we will be the ones who extend mercy and forgiveness in a world that seems bereft of both. That we will be the ones who will remind people, not about what's wrong with them, but about what is good about them. I've often said to the guys in the house that I think the hardest thing about following Christ is that he doesn't tell you what's wrong with you. If he did, we'd probably have no difficulty. Instead, he tells us that we are fearfully, wonderfully made. Do you ever notice that if I went up to Jason, and I said, Jason, I think you're one of the best gifts that God has ever given. Look at, he laughs. Okay? But if I go up to Steve and say, you're an idiot, he'd be all over me like a cheap suit. He would just boom, boom, boom. Why is it that we react to criticism and don't know how to respond to compliments? What is it about us? That's weird. But we do. And Levi, Matthew, invites Jesus into his house. And everybody's saying, hey, we know this guy. What are you doing associating with him? It's like when I go back to Hingham, where I grew up, and meet some of the people that I knew as a kid. They're like, you became a priest? You're the one that's the priest? Be careful. The only judgment that counts is Christ's. When I was in high school, we used to wear bell-bottom pants. Okay? It was the fad. Everybody wore them. Nobody's wearing them now. People's opinion changes. People's taste change. But Jesus Christ, the way, the truth, and the life, is perfect. His knowledge of you will never change. His love for you is perfect. You can't add to it, and you can't take anything away from it. But what you can do is accept it and let it make a difference. Matthew, the tax collector, the outcast, Jesus saw something in him and said, come and follow me. And Matthew ended up writing a book about all the things that Jesus did. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to follow Christ. Instead, trust him. Open wide your hearts, as John Paul used to say, and let him in. But be prepared that when you love somebody, it's not about you, it's about them. If you look at the 12th station right here, as Jesus dies on that cross, there is a question that I ask all the time. Lord, where did you get the strength to do that? And the answer I hear is very simple. Because I was thinking about you and not about me. If you love Jesus, and I'm sure you do, then think about him. And what is it that he asked? Do you love me more than these? He said to Peter. Yeah, you know I do, says Peter. Then he says, well, feed my sheep. Then he says, well, second time he asks him, do you love me? You know I love you. Then feed my sheep. And the third time he asks him, and Peter's getting tacked now. And Peter says, you know everything. You know I love you. And the Lord says, then feed my sheep. And then he says, when you were a young man, you went and did everything you wanted. But now that you are older, and because you love me, you will go to places you may not want to go, but you will go because you love. Dear brothers, it's a joy to have you with us this morning. Every one of us in this chapel has gone through what you're going through right now. But as somebody who's been a priest for 42 years, I can tell you without any equivocation that if the Lord is calling you to the priesthood, do not be afraid to say yes. Because what awaits you, you cannot imagine. But I can assure you, it will be the greatest journey you will ever go. And it will be the best experience you could ever have. Thank you for sharing yourselves with us this morning. And let us assure you of our prayers so that what God sees in you may indeed come to fruition. And you will not be afraid to say, here I am, send me.